It is my honor and pleasure again to introduce someone who is part of the Diocese of Venice. Her name is Carla Repollet. And Carla, where do you hail from? Where's your hometown?
Well, I was born in the Azores, actually. I wasn't.
Oh, wow.
States, yeah.
See, that's cool. You should have added that. All right. So Carla has served in the Archdiocese of Newark, not New York, but Newark, for 19 years as the Vice Chancellor and Executive Director of Development before joining the Diocese of Venice as the Director of Stewardship and Development 2 years ago. She has extensive experience in implementing successful annual appeals, cultivating major donors, introducing or enhancing stewardship as a way of life, conducting capital campaigns, and executing enhanced offertory programs. Carla and her husband reside in Sarasota. All right, Carla, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to now share my screen so we can watch the presentation that I have put together. Here. Okay, so today we're going to discuss best practices to get your alumni to give, because they're really your most important constituents. And a lot of times we leave them out because we don't have all the information on them. But I think it's your best bet in terms of return on investment, as well as your best bet in getting some large donations. I want to begin just with the differences between development and fundraising. I know we use that word fundraising often when we're talking about development, and I do it myself. When someone asks me what I do for a living, I've stopped saying development because they always ask me, oh, what do you develop? And so I just say, oh, I'm in charge of fundraising, but it's quite different. And so I want to begin with that. Fundraising are the things that sometimes the schools do in terms of selling chocolate and, gift wraps. They're transactional. There's no relationship. People that buy don't really know the name of your school or its mission. Your emphasis is really on the dollar amount. It's based on one event and based on a dollar need. While you can do some of that and sprinkle it in throughout the school year, you really should be focusing on development. One, because your return on investment is a lot greater. You develop relationships that will be meaningful and will carry your school financially for a very long time. So it's very important to know the difference, and also to know that you really should concentrate on development, and that fundraising is always secondary. Especially, a lot of times we do these carnivals or these events, and, just like with the coronavirus, which was so unexpected, we had a church that depends on making their Catholic faith appeal goal on selling raffles. And what happens when now, the churches are closed and she's got all these raffle tickets. It's illegal to mail raffle tickets that were not requested. And so it becomes where her fundraising for that is really dead. And that's what happens sometimes when you depend on the fundraising part. So I just put some summary of key findings that most Americans give, and that the matures are the most generous generation. And the reason why I want you to see that is because oftentimes we don't want to leave other generations out, which is really important. And having a multi-channel way of development is fine. But you also should know that you really need to concentrate on the people that are going to give you the most money. One of the other things too is a lot of times people think direct mail is not good. Direct mail produces the most revenue in most organizations. It won't last forever because, you know, Generation Y and X are more likely to give online. And baby boomers are now starting to catch up on that as well. And, you know, the value of some channels is undervalued. Sometimes social media. Sometimes we do think of older people not on social media, but especially during this virus, that was the one way to communicate, was through social media. So I do find that older people are becoming better at using social media and are getting on. Telemarketing and giving through the phone, like text, is really not the best way. Oftentimes we see that, you know, give $10 by dialing this, that's what you're gonna get, $10. It's a quick and easy thing to do, but at the same time, your return on investment is not great because people are gonna give you that, $10. Peer-to-peer fundraising and crowdfunding has a future. So that's, you know, definitely where you want to spend a lot of time, and we'll go through that a little bit.
Did you see my, is it short and sweet like that?
So this is the generational giving.
This is my
Generation Y, X, boomers, and the matures. And as you can see, the matures are those born 1945 and earlier. So there's 68 as of 2013. And they represent about 26% of all giving. And this holds true that the matures are the ones giving the most, followed by boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y. And you could see a chart of what they give and the percentages. You know, boomers do give more money, but the matures are more likely to give. So the essential steps, and that's really, you know, when I talked about Tuesday, the first step is to research your graduating classes and put them in the database. Utilize whatever records exist, your class records, your student files, your yearbooks, your commencement programs, and put them in your database. So it's really, your goal is to create a database of current names and addresses. And I've, you know, spoken about this, that the chancellor is trying to find a way, and you know, John, you and I could probably tag team him on this, is to you know, get all of our files from our alumni researched. It's not 100% accurate, but at least it's 90% accurate, because if you don't have the right contact information, it'll be very difficult to cultivate these relationships. You also want to increase alumni involvement, which is really to get them involved in some other way besides financial, and to establish class agents, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Your annual appeal. You really should have goals for each of your constituent types, including your alumni. You want to have set goals for your alumni. So not just have a goal for your annual appeal, but then within your constituent types, really have a goal for that. You want to schedule your direct mail, all of that ahead of time. Don't just do it on a whim. Special events, and really you want to use the time of the pastor, the principal, the school board chairman. You want that ahead of time. So now would be a great time, especially during the summer, to project all of that. So the pastor, the principal, and the school board knows how much time they'll be spending on that. All alumni should be invited to participate in the annual appeal, but make sure that the annual appeal solicitation is not their first communication that they receive from the school. We talked about Tuesday, the newsletter, how important it is to send that out. Use class agents to contact the alum if they're not responding to solicitation requests. And what that is if you have a graduate of 1988, get a volunteer that graduated in 1988. Peer-to-peer is an effective tool because they know that this was a graduate. If it's important to them, it should be important to that person as well. If the alum is known to be affluent, then the pastor or principal should really do the call. It should rise up to that level. And then you want assignment of major gifts, because major gifts are treated differently. A lot of times I get some pushback from development people to say, well, everyone should be treated the same because it's a, equal sacrifice for everyone. That is absolutely true. However, that that 20% that gives that 80%, you really have to focus on them, because if you lose one of them, it is very difficult to replace that gift. So use your prospect research. If you are currently using any, database, ask that vendor if they offer any prospect or wealth screening, because it's important to determine the gift range that they're available to give. You don't want to underestimate. That's the number one problem. If you're writing a letter to them and you're asking them for 500, but really you should be asking them for 5,000, they're probably going to give you the 500 because that's what you've asked for and not the potential of the 5,000. So you really should know what they're worth and determine that gift range. And really foster a genuine connection. You want to have them make those larger gifts, but they want to know exactly where that money is going. More than ever, our donors are very savvy. They have a lot of organizations reaching out to them with great causes, and you want to offset that by being very, very transparent where their money is going. Host a fundraising event just for the alumni. They want to feel special. The fundraising goal, yes, it's to raise money, but also to remind them of their connection to the school and to the community. A lot of times we're pressured to, speak to every single person in the room as a development person, but you should also have your faculty and students being out there, because you want to concentrate on certain relationships. Know who's coming and give a list to everyone and say, I need you to find these people and have a meaningful conversation with them. You don't want it to be like that dating game where it's just like 10 minutes and then you move on to the next person. You want to give that person valued time. Sports events is a great time to ask your alum to donate. If you have a great, baseball team, it's a great way to write a letter to them, especially if they're interested in sports or they used to play for your school, everyone's feeling good. It's a great time to write to them about that. If your team's on the losing side, reach beyond that, and then maybe some academic situations that people really can relate to, or some other extracurricular events. Then if you want performance events, if you're having, maybe you're having an alumni that people really know, invite them to come and to share that experience with your school. Department focused events. So if you need your, a new science lab, then, or a new theater program, for instance, invite them to come and, watch a classic film. Popcorn is very cheap, and you make them aware of your different programs in the school that way. If it's very focused, people really enjoy very focused type of events where it's not you're just talking about, hey, we need money for operations, but very department focused, whether it's the science lab, a theater program, whatever it may be, really focus on that event and make it something that is beyond just your normal wine and cheese and we need money kind of event. And also introduce your alumni who donate to scholarships to the students. Ask those students to write thank you letters to the donors. At the end of the year, follow up and send a letter to those donors saying, Mary did very well this year. She's off to high school, or if you're in high school, she's off to college. so that they're aware that their money is really making a difference in the school. Don't just write them, hey, thank you for this, and then just leave them alone, and they don't know what's really happening with the money. And find a way to show your alumni the clear difference that their donations are really making towards that student's education or in general. Give them a designated place on your website. Oftentimes it's just, you know, here's your website and you really got to dive in to find anything for your alumni. They want to feel special. I mean, after all, they graduated from your school. They're the ones who made your school what it is. And so give them that special place. A matching challenge. Another great way to get your alumni to give. I find this to be really, really good way of getting money very quickly, especially to those that don't normally give. But what you can do is just find a donor that's willing to put up their donation as a match. So if it's a big donor of $5,000, $10,000, and say, we've got 2 days and we have donors. We have a donor that's giving us matching. So your gift will have double the impact at this time. And of course, social media is a great way to put that up. And I volunteer for a lot of the organizations that I support financially. I also volunteer for them as a development person or consultant. And I have seen such wonderful things. The other day, I did a Feed the Need for an organization that takes in pregnant women who are homeless. And we did a 24-hour challenge of $10,000 to say, because they're at home, our grocery bills are a lot higher because we have to feed them throughout the day. Won't you help meet this challenge? We raised $20,000, even though our challenge was to raise $10,000 to match. And that double the impact really makes a huge difference. And executing that matching challenge is the timing. You want to launch at the final push of the campaign so that those donors, those alumni who are already going to give have given. And sometimes you can even get them to give again through this. Send out emails, do it through social media, that there's a limited time for them to do that. Because if they're anything like me, a lot of times we get mail and we mean to give, but we kind of push it to the side, and then 2 months later, that letter's still there and you didn't give. But when it's that urgent need of, here it is, double the impact, people will really give. Appeal to their interests. So you want to segment your audience and to give specific pitches. If a person is interested in sports and you need to renovate the gym, or you need more money for your athletic department, then segment that audience and write them a solicitation letter about that specific thing. And it could be based on graduation year, extracurricular activities, cultural identification. A lot of things will make people give. And then re-engage with your alumni on social media. You know, a lot of you do a great job on social media. A lot of times when I want to see what's going on in the diocese, to even include on our Catholic Faith Appeal, I look at your websites. And some, it's just, you know, more than one post a day, which is fantastic. They're meaningful posts. They're not just for, you know, quantity, they're quality posts. So you really want to really pay attention, and pay attention to how many people like your posts. If you post something and you've gotten more likes than before, post more of those type of things. Make giving easy. You know, people are active on Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms. Ask them to share your posts. Make sure you offer a credit card option. It's unbelievable that during this crisis, I found that 13 of our parishes did not have a credit card option. And some of those didn't even have a website. We had 4 parishes without a website. And it was really, truly amazing, because when people move into an area, that's the first thing that they want to do, if they're Catholic, is find what parish is nearby. They did not have online giving, and many of them said, oh, no, we have an older generation, we have a Hispanic generation. But when the diocese created online pages for those parishes that did not offer, without any promotion, people came on and actually donated. And when I went back to the pastor and said, people are donating through our, the diocesan website for your parish, now they're more in tune with, okay, maybe people are giving through this way. So make sure you offer that option. Cultivate long-term relationships. A lot of times we cultivate relationships and then kind of leave them alone. Oh, this is good. We have a good relationship. Make sure that you cultivate these long relationships, whether they're VIPs or not. Now, your major donors, you do have to give them special treatment, but you should also make some effort to also give time to others. Link yourself to a cause outside the school, especially for those alumni that are not giving to you. Maybe they feel like your school, I love my school, but there are homeless people. There are people that need to be fed. So link yourself to one of those community-generated events and ask your alumni to participate in that with you. And along the way, you can learn about them, learn about the causes that they like, and they're more likely to then give to your school, knowing that your school supports this kind of activity. And so that's another way to bring in alumni who may not be giving to your annual appeal, or if you want to establish a relationship with them, to let them know that your school is not just educating students on math and reading, they're also educating them to be community leaders. And then focus on more than just money. Sometimes we get caught up in the giving back, and alumni want to know that their value is not just in their money. Ask them for their opinion. If you know an alum is not really giving their full potential, or not giving at all to your cause, or giving sporadically, ask them, what's important to them. Send out a survey. Surveys are done online, and you can have them, there's a lot of survey platforms that even actually analyze the survey for you at the end. Offer a way to get them in to talk about their careers on career day and to share their successes. And if they're engaged in that way, they're more likely to then start giving. Conduct donor surveys. How do they feel about your fundraising strategy? Regularly survey your supporters with questions regarding their interactions. So it's not just writing to them. Sometimes you can include a solicitation letter with a survey. Again, when I did it to some of these organizations that I consult, we found one organization, they said, you send me too much mail. And I had already realized that and was saying, there's too much mailing going on, solicitations. And that's exactly what we learned, that they stopped reading them because there's just too many. So ask them their opinion and analyze the results of everything that you do. Because how do you know if it's being effective? If you are running an event, especially events, galas, I find are very labor intensive. And a lot of people are happy when they bring in, $30,000, $40,000 in one night, but they're extremely labor intensive. So analyze not just the cost of the food and the invitations, but analyze the cost of the labor on that instead of calling major donors that maybe you could have solicited $40,000 from just one major donor, you were focusing on that. evaluate the trends in your interaction to really find out, is your fundraising strategy what these group of individuals are seeking? And then spotlight shared experiences. Create the opportunities for like mini reunions. If your school was built in a certain year, or if your gym was renovated in a certain year, bring those people back and share that experience and say, remember when this happened. I mean, this year is one of those odd years that, 10 years from now, you could bring these students back and say, remember when we had a virtual class because of the coronavirus? And, you have 8 years of students who remember this well, and bring them back just based on those kind of things. It really strengthens that bond with other alum that experienced this, whether they were in their class or not. And it really makes that mini reunion, when we have pictures of teachers on their computer teaching children, and I'm sure they have fond memories of being at home with their parents, and their parents are trying to work and trying to teach them. I think that that's a great way to really share that. Clean your donor data. As soon as you get an address change, make sure to do that. If you, whoever you're using as your printer, if you're using just yourself, run it through the NCOA, through the post office, get those address changes and make those address changes as soon as you can. Delete duplicate profiles. A lot of times, even right now, I'm working on deleting. I have about 1,200 duplicates in Razor's Edge, and it does happen. And so delete those so that the person's not receiving 2 mailings. So make sure that you're updating your profiles as soon as possible. How to appeal to recent graduates and young adults is another great way. You don't think of your recent graduates or those who are in college years as being donors. And they may not be able to give right now, but also keep them in your radar. It unfolds over decades, not months. A lot of the things that you're doing today, you may not see the fruits of your labor. And the next person that will come on will have all those rewards of all those gifts coming in from what you do today. I remember when I left the Archdiocese of Newark, we had more than $20 million pending in bequests that were going to be coming in shortly. And certainly, I know that I worked those, but I was not going to see the full fruits of my labor because that money was going to come afterwards. But that's just the name of the game. A lot of times we're focused on what can I bring today? Yes, that's important because we need to, reach those milestones in the budget. But you also want to make sure that your recent graduates don't lose connection with them. It's very important. So don't lose with them. College grads right now are very familiar with crowdfunding, so reach out to them in that capacity. If your alumni is young, if you're, an elementary school development director and you know that they're about to go to college, host something in your school about going on to college. Invite another alum to speak about their experience and share that experience. Make it relevant to them. If they're graduating college, maybe host something at your gym, like a job fair for them. I know it sounds strange for you to do those kind of things, but that makes that person know that you care about what they're doing today. And they're more likely to then donate. Host an informative blog. you know, whether it's job search, whatever it is, however old your upcoming donors are, host that informative blog. And also allow donations through social pages. You know, a lot of people are on Facebook, so make sure that they're able to interact there and to donate right through there. Because if you have a lot of these young people, young adults, that's the way they like to do it. And be relevant, stay trendy and tuned on to what's going on in the world, and engage your alumni in that capacity. You know, if I remember that I think it was for Lou Gehrig's disease, when that frozen bucket challenge, and it picked up and everybody was doing it. So stay trendy on how you treat your alumni that are young adults, and they're more likely to give to your school. So stay relevant in that way. What works for your other generations don't exactly work for your young adults. And so make it trendy, make it fun, so that you can engage them as well. So really, alumni engagement is really about the powerful tool of connections. And I know a lot of times that's one of the most difficult things to do as a development director. Where do I find the time? And I am as guilty as anyone about that. I'm so crazed with doing everything else in the office that did I call that donor that just sent us a $50,000 check? Make the time, because it is the most powerful tool in raising money. You know, they were on your campus every single day. They make memories to last a lifetime. And I've always said this, you know, one of my greatest pet peeves, and a lot of you heard this from other workshops, is when I find that a Catholic has made a multi-million-dollar gift to a university, and they attended Catholic high school or Catholic elementary school, and yet they're not really being that generous to either organization. And most of the time, it's because they haven't been asked. And they form the most wonderful memories on your campus, not on the college campus. They make lifelong friends on your campus. So make sure that you're reaching out to them all the time as soon as they graduate. You know, they are the heart of your school. Nothing equates to the support and connection that they can provide. And once that support is gone, it's really hard to get it back. So ideally, as soon as they graduate, you know, send them a postcard in the summer. Hope you are doing well, or send it in the fall and hope your college life is everything you thought it would be. I am still here for you. Otherwise, that support's going to really slowly fade. So just go out there and make those connections, those lifelong connections, because that is the most important thing that you know, you can do. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I'm just going to take a sip of my coffee because my throat is a little dry now after doing some.
No problem. Carla, I had a question. I put it into the Zoom group chat. You mentioned about a multitude of survey platforms. Which one or ones do you recommend using for surveys?
Well, I mean, the free one is SurveyMonkey, and that works just fine. I've done lots of SurveyMonkey ones, and the results sometimes can be quite surprising because it's anonymous, and sometimes that when it's anonymous, people feel free to give their honest opinion. Sometimes when you call them and ask them, they don't always give that opinion. So I would say SurveyMonkey is very easy to use, and it's free. So I would say that's the best one.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? I have a couple more.
That was great. I have a question about the raffles being illegal. So our school has for like 10 years now sent out Lucky 7 raffle tickets. And I thought as long as you could, you didn't need to buy them. You know, on the back it says donation.
Yes, yes. So that doesn't become a raffle anymore, becomes a donation. Okay. That is exactly the advice that I gave that parish. To
like
go
minimum suggested donation, yeah, okay.
Yes, so it's not really a raffle, it's a suggested donation. Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. The other way that you can do it is to send out letters and say we are having a raffle, you know, $50 or whatever it may be, and they send you the money and then you send them the raffle ticket, because now they're clearly asking for a raffle ticket. Okay. So it's really just sending them out without someone asking for it. That's okay. Cool.
And Carla, I know you mentioned this throughout your presentation, but when it comes to alumni, I know when I think alumni, I automatically think either college or high school, but I don't really think about being an alumni of my elementary school or my middle school. Is there a different approach to those kind of alumni? Is there a way that you need to be a little bit different or be a little bit kind of change up your messaging a bit when you're trying to approach alumni that, you know, maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they were in a particular PK through 8 school?
Nope. Nope. The biggest factor is that we did not reach out to them as soon as they graduated, because we don't think of them as donors. But they are your future donors. So we didn't spend any time on them. And it is a little bit harder to form that relationship now, 30 years later. And that's why you should not solicit them. That should not be your biggest piece. You know, for a lot of people, their lifelong friends are the friends that they made in elementary school, if you think about it. I was most excited when my elementary school had a reunion, class of 1984. And I was really excited. And then they did a multi-class reunion just to see how many people would come, because they didn't know. And then they found that class of 1984 was one of the classes that a lot of people came. So they did then a special one. I was so much more excited, even more excited than my high school reunion, was an elementary school reunion. So you want to start developing those relationships with your alumni, because if they are not willing to give, what makes you think that other constituents are willing to give to you? These are people who actually went to the school and know the value of the school.
Thank you.
Sorry, my throat. And so you want to establish that relationship by having those mini reunions that were spoken about there, to send out that newsletter. Do not ever let a solicitation letter for money be the first thing that they receive. It is terrible. And also know that whoever is graduating this year, you should reach out to immediately. Need that coffee in the morning. I'm sure a lot of you, when you graduated college, they wrote to you within 6 months.
That is true. They still contact.
I know. I didn't have money when they started writing to me. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But they still wrote to you.
Yes, they did.
And they sent you that big newsletter. Mm-hmm. And they still send it to me. Now, I'll have to admit, I'm not a great financial supporter of my college, because, when I was young, I had certain ideals, and as I had children, my ideals have shifted quite a bit, and my college doesn't fit those ideals anymore that I had when I was young. And so I'm not a big supporter of theirs. This was the first time I donated to them, was this year, but they never lost touch with me. They continued to send me their newsletter. They understanding that I was going to reach a time when my kids have all graduated college, and that I was going to be able to make a gift. And so I did. They never lost that hope, because they know that as you get older, you're more likely to give. So they just kept going with it. Is there a cost involved? Absolutely. But if you have those relationships, you are going to bring in the necessary funds to continue doing that. That is the major obstacle, is that we always think in terms of cost, but we don't think of in terms of the return on the investment. For that price of the stamp, what are you going to get? Maybe I apologize. Ooh.
I will say that one of the things I've had really good success with this year at Cardinal Mooney, because I am an alumni and I love the school very much, is I started doing campus tours on my own time. So if I knew a reunion group was in town on an off weekend, not homecoming, sometimes they do them in the middle of the summer, I would say, hey, let's do a 45-minute tour of campus. And so I've had like the class of 72, 74, 78, 79, a bunch of the 80s years. And I just try to like get to know them. And I'm like, hey, what was like the #1 song your senior year? Or what was the school's cheer at the time? Because our cheer changes. And then I use that to reach back out to those classes so that my content and like my reach is more authentic, because I'm like, hey, they're used to Pause Up, whereas some years it's Cougar Crazies. And we just kind of make it really specific for what class year we're dealing with. And the return I've gotten on that is I now have 7 or 8 class members from a 20-year range that call me regularly with ideas and ways to engage the alumni on different levels and things that they want to do to help. And so it's really generated this year. We've had more first-time donors from our alumni than we have in 30 years. And I really think a lot of it's just that reach out and that kind of human factor of like, tell me what Moody was like when you were here.
Exactly. And on Tuesday, I talked about that. The school tour is so important.
Mm-hmm.
That smell of magic markers, like I said, that really is nostalgic.
Absolutely. And
when you enter in. And I also like that you asked them for that feedback of, what was the school cheer? What was this? They like bringing all that stuff. And there's no reason why you can't ask questions in a newsletter and say, log on to our website,
right,
to Facebook, and put your fondest memory. There's no reason why your post can't have a question.
Absolutely.
Your fondest memory, Mrs. Smith is retiring after being here for 15 years. What's your fondest memory?
Mm-hmm.
You want that feedback, because then from that feedback, you can then communicate on Facebook and say, oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. And now you have a connection there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can call that person later on, and it's not a cold call because you already have that, and what you said, the peer-to-peer, which is, I've got this great idea how we can get, that's peer-to-peer, fundraising. Oftentimes we think we have to do it all because we're the development director, and it isn't. You have to get these, what we call the class agents, to be volunteers, and they're willing to do it because they love the school too. They have fond memories of the school, and, they want the school to continue, especially when they hear of school closures in the Northeast. They want to make sure the school is there for a long time. And so I love that you're giving tours, of the school, and, you can even give a virtual tour. You can put it up on Facebook, and, and that way people, make it live and go through different classrooms and record it and put it on. And, the feedback that you get is just wonderful. And then you make those connections, because those are the people who are, looking at your Facebook, and reach out to them.
Right. Connie just put in something here. She said, would you consider putting out a campaign asking for parents of the Diocese of Venice educated children to get in touch with their child's school to give their current address? Could be a fun campaign.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the beginning.
Sure. Connie, you can read this in the group chat. She said, would you consider putting out a campaign asking for parents of Diocese of Venice educated children to get in touch with their child's school to give their current address? So in other words,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
okay. Well,
I
how would,
think-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So one of the best things, I talked about on Tuesday, which was the postcard being a very cost-effective way of doing things. So you could have a note saying, we are looking for Robert, and we would love to get in touch with Robert because we have exciting things going on in our school. Please visit and have something on your website so they can go on and make it easy for them, or call a specific person with the address change. You can also get some volunteers, especially from that class. If it's class in 1988, then get someone from class in 1988 to be a volunteer, because if that person calls, there may be a parent that says, oh my gosh, I remember you, Carla. How are you? And then say, Mrs. Smith, we're looking for Mary's address. We would love to communicate with her about the exciting things happening at St. Mary's. And so I find that postcard and phone calls with volunteers are a really effective way, using some of those class agents. And they could even look over the list and say, these are the list of the alumni that we don't have information on. And look through the list and say, I know Mary, I know Robert, I know this. And a lot of them have these addresses. So ask them to share. I see one of the things that on the Rutgers, that's where I went, Rutgers. On the Rutgers newsletter, which is, we can't locate so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so from class of blah, blah, blah. And my high school did the same thing. They posted on social media. During a class reunion, we can't locate these people. Do you know where they are? And a lot of times, 90% of the time, they're still in touch with someone from the graduating class. So you could do that on social media as well and say, we are looking for some of your classmates, to reach out to them about the exciting news of what's happening in our school. If you have contact information, please, private message us. They can do a lot of that for you that you don't have to do, but you have to ask, and getting those volunteers in is key as well.
Carla, this is Connie. Thanks
Yes.
for answering that. I think I'm talking about a broader approach, or more of a, John, this would be, I think, under your jurisdiction, but doing a Diocese of Venice campaign. So, and he didn't read the bottom part. It could be a fun campaign like, we helped you form your children. Now help us reach out to them or get in touch with them. Because, for instance, I have a child who went kindergarten through 8th grade in a local Catholic school. They went on to get their 4-year degree. They have their master's degree. They're doing their practicum, but no one's been in touch with them. My daughter hasn't received anything. I'm local in town. If I saw a campaign from the Diocese of Venice on Facebook or Instagram or some other social media platform, I would reach out and say, oh, here's my daughter's address. So I think that would be a really great way for the diocese to sponsor an event like this. John wouldn't be getting the phone calls. You're recommending that the families get in touch with the school themselves. But I think this could be something different and positive and kind of fun, especially if it's worded in a kind of a tongue-in-cheek way. But, just an idea.
Absolutely. I love it, Connie. And I think, John, you and I should talk offline out and, really kind of see what we can do there, because, I really love the idea. It would be fun and, like using something trendy that we can do, and certainly to get, as you said, Connie, no one's, really contacted you or your child, and And that's exactly what happens. And
Right.
it would be, you know, I really like a diocesan-wide. I think it would be fantastic.
Thank you, Carla.
Yeah, that to piggyback on that, Connie, that's a great idea. And yes, Carla, I would love to work together on a campaign like that, because I mean, I think it'd be just outstanding that we
Yeah, I did write a note
that
about
done.
that. So.
Yeah, I did too. It's on my to-do list. It's on my I don't have a bulletin board, but I'll write it on Jennifer's board here next to me. All right, great. Any other questions reference alumni, or maybe some ideas you've had, or just from your experience? How are your current alumni relations? Jeff, do you have anything? Like, go ahead.
I was just unmuting myself. We actually have an official alumni association. We've got a couple of ladies that run it from the class of '03, I believe. We try to do it once a quarter. We have an off-site gathering, and we typically have anywhere between 10 and 30 people joining us. We typically choose a restaurant slash bar that is owned by a graduate of Bishop Breaux, so we support the graduates, and we all join. We have a great time. We've got different things that we perhaps sell or give away. We do a raffle a couple times a year for the gala, so we raffle off one ticket, so they bring a guest and they purchase another ticket and they come. So we're getting more alumni the last few years coming to our gala than we have in the past. A lot of that is in part due to the Alumni Association. They've got their own Facebook, and of course me graduating from here is a big help because I can get those folks here, and we have our tailgate has been increasing over the past couple of years too, with the amount of people that come to the homecoming tailgate. So it's getting stronger. Still some work ahead of us, but it's going well.
Well, you're one of those that if I need an article or a picture, I go to on social media. So I really do love Facebook and a lot of the positive things that come out from the Facebook.
And that's Patty Holmes. She handles all of our communications. You know, if she can't make an event, she hands me the camera. So we're always taking pictures, and we've got a great alumni magazine. So it's off to a very good start. It's just, you know, fine tuning it and getting more folks involved.
Right.
And you hit
don't have to do it
a couple
all.
of times, Carla, you said, and I agree, and we've had much success, is that I try to get people on campus as much as possible. The campus has been improved facility-wise immensely since in the last 4 years. So even if it's only 4 years ago, people are happily surprised with the campus on how it is. And if they came here in the 80s or the 70s in school, they're really surprised because now we have air conditioning. Back then we didn't have air conditioning. So just that, it's fun to get people on campus. And we have just formed, and it's the official announcement that will be going out with our alumni magazine. We just formed a little legal society where if you are a judge or an attorney or, you know, legal professional, we've got a local grad that is an attorney that's running with this, and we're going to have on-site events, which I know will foster more sponsorships for our events. So it's going to be a nice little tight little group, and something new to give a try.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Think out of the box.
Right.
Absolutely. I have one more question. I'm going to throw this one to Linda. Just so you know, Linda Caldwell, she is my counterpart for the Diocese of Orlando. She's part of a team of 3 marketing coordinators. Linda, just from your perspective and working with your development team, how do you work with alumni from a diocesan standpoint? Have you done any campaigns similar to what Connie mentioned about getting all the schools together to update addresses and get the alumni excited again?
Actually, no. So,
That's right.
but it's given me ideas of what we need to do. I think it is alumni are very important. And as we were talking, I actually went to my kids, the school my son graduated from, because when Connie said that she hasn't been reached out, they do have a page, but they haven't reached out. So the diocese, we don't do anything. This is not to say moving forward we won't, because it's a lot of great ideas here. But our schools, we stress as marketing directors to our schools that, you know, be in touch with your alumni, and some do a fabulous job, you know, some need help. So that's kind of where we are. This is a place that we need to grow as well. So.
Well, thank you, Linda. I appreciate
Sorry,
that.
I couldn't be much help.
No,
with
that's
that.
all right. No,
I think you are a lot of help because, you know, we're you know, this is why these kind of meetings are important.
Yeah.
Is, you know, sometimes, you know, as the director, I don't have all the answers either, and we can get some great feedback from the ones that are in the schools, and then from our alumni, and from, you know, so it's great that we all get together and learn from what's great, and, you know, and what we can do to all help each other. Because at the end of the day, we all have the same mission. We love our faith, want to keep our schools open. We want to, you know, not just open, but thriving.